Meet Reed Lance Rosenthal, rancher, #1 best-selling award-winning author, and unabashedly, unapologetically on the right side of the outstanding issues of our generation. But don't try to fence him in. Sometimes his positions will surprise you, because Reed is definitely his own man, with his own opinions. You might love him, you might hate him, but you won't be able to stop listening. Step over to the right side with Reed.
Howdy, listeners from coast to coast, the Gulf to Canada, and around the globe, and viewers too, on all the platforms. Remember, by the way, if you're seeing these videos, please hit the like, hit the little bell deal if they got one of those going, and subscribe. It helps us a bunch. And pass these links on. So, number one, I'm a couple days late on this show. I'm slowly getting back on schedule after the big book signing at the National Finance Rodeo in Las Vegas, and thanks to all the people who came, thousands. It was great. And I'm going to be doing some time here over the next couple of weeks down at the Denver Stock Show. So you readers and other folks who want to talk to me, come on down and talk to me. We'll have more on that here in the upcoming show. It doesn't start till this side of the middle of January. So today, I'm not going to give you any history because literally the only history we have for where we are now as a country, I've given you in the several previous shows, 7 presidents, what they did in times kind of similar to these, and all the way from George Washington up to I think Lyndon Baines Johnson. Gag me. I don't like the guy, but he made the list. You should watch those shows because really the theme of this show is that we are in a very uncertain time. Yes, it's certain that Trump got elected. And it's certain that he has put some good people in some good places, assuming the rhinos don't sink the appointment ship. But what's going to happen in Congress? We have a 1-seat majority in the House. And I want to tell you, there's 3 special elections, New York 21, and I believe Florida 1 and Florida 6. On the Take Action page, on the recommended contribution page, that's posted on the rightsideradio.com. Send $10, folks. The Democrats are going to try and scuttle those elections, even though they're in pretty good, I'm not sure anything's solid right now, red districts, but money makes a difference, particularly when people on our side of the fence, the conservative side of the fence, are euphoric, right? Everything is fine. Trump is coming in. Everything's going to be fixed. Elon and Vivek are going to cut the government and blah, 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 blah. I've done several shows. I'm trying to hammer this home. This is really, really, really important. Nothing is certain. Zero. Things can change in the blink of an eye, even on an individual basis. A good friend of mine just had a tragic accident happen with her dad, or, just out of the blue, overnight, unexpected. So it can happen on a personal basis. It can happen on a community basis. It can happen on a national basis. It can happen with the way today's world is intertwined on a global basis. But there are some things which are certain. We have 107 trillion in debt, including unfunded liabilities, minimum. That doesn't even count pensions, okay? Pensions are another trillions and trillions. I brought you a show 2 months ago on the problems with the pension funds. And I warned you folks who are pensioners to be aware. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do other than to get in there and investigate who is running your pension, what they are doing with the money, etc. And you have the right to do that. They can't refuse you. But what I'm trying to impress upon all of you who listen to me on very many platforms around the world, actually, and thank you for listening, I appreciate it a bunch, is that do not be complacent. Do not be euphoric. I mean, enjoy Christmas. Enjoy New Year's. Spend the time with your family, spend the time with your friends. It's more important, really, than anything. But understand that there are a pile of unknowns out there. And each of those unknowns, globally, internationally, uh, in terms of conflict, wars, in terms of some event happening here in the United States. I talked to you last week about the drones and my theory that they are actually sniffing for a missing nuclear weapon or a dirty bomb that's been smuggled across the southern border. Thank you, you traitors, Obama, Biden, and crew. Anything can happen at any time in a split second and change everything. And even if there isn't a black swan event like that, there is so much uncertainty out there. I listen to a lot of stuff. I read a lot of stuff. I'm curious. I have my own things going on, and I want to be as well informed as I can. And because of this show, because I want to bring you information. In many cases, you may have heard it peripherally, you may have heard a whisper, but I want to bring you kind of the story behind the story and where it's applicable, the history that goes way back that may affect the current event. So let's start off with these are not founders quotes, but they're quotes from one of my favorite guys, Mark Twain. And I got three of them for you today. And each one has a purpose in this show. So, no amount of evidence will ever persuade an idiot. Isn't that true? On a personal level, on a political level, on an international level, it doesn't matter. The second quote: politicians in diapers must be changed often and for the same reason. I love that. Well, we're changing politicians, and the diapers that we're throwing out are, they're not white, they're kind of brown. Yeah, yeah, and filthy. And then his last quote, and I think this is apropos for the Christmas season: life is short, break the rules, forgive quickly, kiss slowly, love truly, laugh uncontrollably, and never regret anything that makes you smile. Unquote. Thank you, Mark Twain. And I think that last one, because I'm throwing up some red flags, but I want to be as positive as I can in this show. I want to wish you all a Merry, Merry Christmas, a happy, happy Hanukkah, the best New Year's ever for all of us because we deserve it. And may everything go your way. May the wind be at your back continuously from here until we speak again this time next year. Now, next week, I'm going to have another show which is going to bring you up to speed on the year end and some major stories that will be breaking then and that are kind of culminating after 2024. And the week after, which is New Year's, I'm going to bring you up to speed kind of on and this is an annual event for me, on how I did for my prognostications for this year, 2024, and what my forecasts are on a whole bunch of different things, a whole bunch of different levels for 2025. And without patting myself on the back, I've been pretty spot on for about 10 years running, 10 or 11. So it might be an interesting series of shows for you. Let's start with the economy. They're still gaslighting us, okay? I mean, the BLS, which should be the BS, the BLS is still giving us all sorts of numbers about employment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, look, yeah, there may be X amount of jobs, but a huge percentage of that X amount of new jobs is government. And as part of the sabotage, the going out the door sabotage that the Obama third term administration is laying as a barrier in front of Trump and team. And it's intentional. I mean, right down to, you probably heard this story. They're selling all the stuff. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of materials that are stacked along the border to build the border wall that Biden stopped his first day in office for pennies on the dollar, right? This is your tax money, folks. This is how much they care about you. Never mind the border. Think about the money. And they are throwing every roadblock they can. They are spending every dime they can. They are exhausting every budget they can. They are funding every communist NGO, hate Israel, hate Jews, hate white people, hate America outfit they can with millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions of your tax money as they scuttle out the door like the cockroaches they are. All right. By the way, Trump has just filed a lawsuit, I think the day before yesterday, asking for an immediate injunction against the sale of this materials stacked along the border. So let's wish him well on that. I mean, it's 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 absolutely breathtaking how little they care about the American people and how little, if any, truth they feed us. And the current administration, which is Obama, uh, there's no truth. There's never been any truth. They don't intend to tell you the truth. It's intentional as it can be. And they are traitorous and they should be tried for treason with the appropriate remedy when they are found guilty. My personal opinion. But let's talk about the economy statistics you're not hearing. And I'm not going to give you a bunch of numbers. I'm just going to give you kind of the general rat-a-tat-tat, if you will. Housing stocks, housing starts, excuse me, are down, okay? Everybody talks about how the housing market is this and that. Listen, there's an app called Reventure, and the guy is really quite good. And the Reventure app, if you are thinking of buying or selling a home, particularly if you're moving from one zip code to another, I think it's like 30 or 40 bucks a month, and it's monthly, so you don't have to keep it like forever. It will give you a lot of information on your zip code, what the inventory is, what the trend line is, what the prices are. Well worthwhile. Well worthwhile. But housing starts are down. They're way down. New construction is going downhill. And that's a big part of this economy. Multifamily starts are down precipitously. Precipitously. And as most of you probably know, in many markets, rents are now coming down. None of this signifies a strong economy, okay? Construction payrolls are down. Now, construction payrolls has been one of the few relatively bright spots in this BS that the BLS has been feeding us for the last 12 months about jobs. Because, as I said, a huge percentage of the jobs have been government jobs using your tax money for people who fill non-essential positions. I'll be nice in my commentary here. And construction payrolls are down. We find out 12 months after the fact. Oh, well, must have been a mistake from Q1 of this year. That's right. From Q1 to now, we're in Q4. Construction payrolls have been going down. The other thing that you need to know about this new job nonsense is that the new jobs, quote unquote, which are not government jobs, are part-time jobs. We've lost over 1 million full-time jobs over the course of this year that we know of. That we know of. Because, once again, you can't believe anything you're told. Stores are having problems everywhere. And they have revised their forecasts for earnings and sales and all that kind of stuff downwards for 2025 several times and rather precipitously here over the last month or two. Big Lots. I brought you this story about 4 months ago. They were closing a significant portion, but less than half of their stores. Well, they just announced that they're filing bankruptcy and they're closing all their stores. They whisper, oh, once we get this straightened out, maybe we'll probably open some others. Don't count on it. And they are not the only ones, folks. They're not the only ones. Walmart And Walmart obviously does better in times like this and as times get tougher. Walmart has downgraded their forecast by a lot. I mean, by 40 to 50% for 2025. So this is affecting retail outlets of all types across the spectrum and across the spectrum of consumer, wealthy, not so wealthy, poor. China. China continues to spiral downhill. And on one hand, you kind of applaud that because they are a huge competitor. On the other, that other engine of the world's economy, the US and China, is not available to pull the locomotive away from the cliff, which it did and was available and saved everybody's bacon in the 2007-2008 great financial crisis. So China has huge problems. And additionally, China is ramping up its purchases of gold and it's ramping up its sale of United States bonds and treasuries. So they're dumping the dollar, and the dollars that they get for the sale of those treasuries, which finances our unbelievable deficit and debt, 548 billion in deficit spending in the last 2 months. I mean, friggin' unbelievable. That is not great for the United States because we have screwed the pooch, in my opinion, intentionally. The Cloward and Piven theory, Obama, who studied under them, by the way. And this all comes from the world not trusting the United States to not use the dollar as a weapon. And listen, I agree with a lot of things Trump has planned, but in a way, tariffs are also a weapon, and it's using the dollar on tariffs. So if I were going into office, and obviously I'm not, thank goodness for all of us, because let me tell you, I'd only be in office about a week and they'd impeach me, but boy, the world would be a different place at the end of that week. Let me just tell you, I mean, different place. And our jails would be full, and our trial courts, their dockets with treason trials would go on from now to ad infinitum because there's a lot of people who deserve it. But China is not good news for the United States. It's not good news for the world, in fact. That engine is needed to pull the world back from the brink. And we're going to talk more about that brink that a lot of the world is on here shortly. By the way, I'm going to do a side. You notice I got a different backdrop here. You got all sorts of cool Sioux hide paintings and stuff like this. This is a different part of the ranch house. You know, when it's dark out, the usual place I broadcast from is too dark. I mean, the lighting is terrible. Some of you have seen videos I've tried to do like in the evening or at night. It's impossible. So you are treated to a different cowboy hat, a different shirt, and a different background. Holy moly. That's the way to end the year. Okay, so China is trying to accelerate their divorce from the dollar. It's pretty evident. And they're doing it in self-defense because they think tariffs are coming their way. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but they bought 55 tons of gold in November. That is, that is a significant chunk of gold metal, significant chunk of yellow metal. In 2001 and in 2008, there was a 4-quarter lag between the time that the economy started to crumble, I mean, really crumble, and huge employment losses. Now, depending upon which economist and which pundit and which supposed expert you listen to, we've been in recession for 2 years. We've been in recession for a year. We're about to go into a recession. One of the things I'll tell you, and this kind of goes to the uncertainty that I'm talking about right now on all sorts of levels, geopolitical, social, political, you name it. and financial. Uh, One of the things that I really got out of the last week, particularly, and I bet you I listened to 30 different people, podcasts, etc., and probably read 100 articles. Nobody agrees on what's happening. Nobody agrees on what's going to happen. You have people saying the precious metals are going to go to the moon. You have people saying precious metals are going to hit the dust. You have people saying that the Dow and all those indices, the stock indices, for those of you who are in the stock market, better be careful, are going to go to the moon. 7,500 Nasdaq or S&P or whatever. I'm not a stock guy. And then there's others that say, oh no, we're in for a 50 to 60% crater in the stock market. And then you have still others who say, oh, we're going to melt up to, these incredible levels, and then we're going to have an 80% drop in the stock market. And it doesn't matter what aspect of the economy, what aspect of geopolitical turmoil across the world, nobody is in agreement, even quasi-agreement, as to what is going to occur in 2025. I will tell you that the preponderance is not good. There's probably a third of the folks that I've listened to and read who say it's going to go up and then come way down. And then there's a third that say, we're at the top, it's going to crater. And then there's a really tiny minority says, oh, we're nowhere near the top, it's going to go on forever. I mean, I think they're smoking dope, but that's okay. That's the old adage that what goes up will always go up. It never comes down. We all know that that's just not the case. But the uncertainty out there, the difference in opinion out there, some of it well reasoned. I mean, you can listen to one guy say this and one guy say that, and they are all well founded in their arguments. I mean, you have to sort this out for yourself. But the one thing you can be certain about is that things are uncertain. And it's best to be defensive rather than offensive. What's more important overall is not losing your wealth. Whether or not you have a profit or you don't have a profit is way less important than not having a loss. Just think about that. I don't care what you're invested in. Maybe you're in stocks, maybe you're in metals, maybe you're in energy. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're in real estate. It's all the same. Personal income. This is our government at work, guys. I mean, there's nothing they haven't revised downward over the course of the year, sometimes by 800,000 jobs in one fell swoop. It's just, I mean, these people are just scum. I mean, they are just scum. They've now revised personal income down. And they originally said that personal income over the last 2 months was 91 billion. They revised it down to 60 billion. That's a $31 billion drop in money going into people's pockets. It's a 33% lie when they gave us the original number. And it makes a huge difference in economic outlook. I mean, nobody can come up with any plan or any forecast if what you're forecasting on is based on a foundation of BS, purposeful BS, I might add. And you almost wonder if it's not, never mind the politics of it, if it's not intentional. They don't want you planning anything. They want a bunch of people hurt, which I happen to believe, by the way, of the outgoing administration. But Trump is in for a tough time, and his team is too. I mean, they're going to fight him every step of the way. They're laying landmines. I gave you a few of them here at the beginning of the show. And what he's going to be able to accomplish and how fast is uncertain. Uncertain. And about this year-end spending bill. I have never liked Mike Johnson. Okay, I do not like the new Senate leader Thune. I mean, yeah, he's been kind of okay as a Republican senator, but he's really a Mitch McConnell disciple. I was very disappointed he was voted in as the Senate leader. Johnson is, I don't know what Johnson is. Johnson seems to rely more on the Democratic votes than the Republican votes. It's really unbelievable. And he proposed, you probably heard about this, a 1,457-page bill, and he expected everybody to vote on it. I think it was within 24 hours. And they bypassed the rule that there had to be 72 hours and had to go through the Rules Committee just to rush it out there because he knew people wouldn't like it and time would not be his ally. Well, fortunately, a bunch of great congressmen, Jim Jordan, Chip Roy, and several others, and several senators like Rand Paul, put the kibosh on it. And Elon Musk tweeted about it incessantly. So that bill got defeated. The Democrats, of course, accused the Republicans of treachery. This was bipartisan, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of like that bipartisan bill that idiot Langsford, senator from Oklahoma. I sure hope you vote his butt out, you folks in Oklahoma that listen to me. It's like that bipartisan bill that they came up with on the border, which didn't do anything but legalize the illegal entry. I mean, Republicans are like their own worst enemy. It's really, really upsetting. But anyway, the final bill went down to 120 pages. It didn't have some of the stuff Trump wanted, which, by the way, I don't agree with, which was a abolishment or at least a partial abolishment of the debt ceiling. I mean, I think the debt ceiling ought to be lowered and in stone. And it lowered expenditures from like $500 billion of nonsense to about 40 billion, including disaster relief, so that these people down in the southeast can finally, once they get rid of the communists who are running FEMA, some FEMA relief for the hurricane, et cetera, down there. 10 billion for farmers. Listen, I'm a rancher. I'm sure some of that money will flow in the direction of the ranch in one way, shape, or form, or to the industry. But none of this money should be being spent, folks. The disaster relief is one thing, but it was a vast improvement, but still not perfect. Okay, and all it is CR, a continuing resolution. We're gonna have to revisit all this crap again in March. I mean, this is unbelievable. How can you run a business or a government without a budget? There's been no budget since Biden got into office. Zero budget. Zero budget. Unbelievable. And it's intentional. But listen, that's what's happening in the United States. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It'll give you the flavor. What's really important, what's really concerning, and what's really uncertain is what's happening overseas. We talked a little bit about China at the beginning of the show. I don't know if you know this, but the German government has basically collapsed. Germany's growth is now around -5%. Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz are like on life support. And the Trump tariffs, if they're enacted, isn't going to help. And the cheap cars from China are not helping. And all these European countries have made terrible, or almost all, terrible decisions, embracing the Green New Deal, getting rid of their nuclear power. In the case of Germany, they built their entire economy, the largest economy in Europe, kind of the fulcrum of the entire European Union and the economy, and the euro dollar itself, which is an important currency, second maybe only to the dollar. They built it all on cheap Russian energy. And then they allowed the United States to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. Didn't say a word, which was their energy supply. I mean, Russia must be, Putin must have just had a glass of champagne. Great. I'll sell my stuff to China. It's even better. I don't have to deal with the dollar. I can get it in gold. I can get it whatever I want, my payments. And too bad for Europe, who's funding Ukraine and sending weapons to my enemies. It's wow. That's all I can tell you. It's just wow. So Germany is in dire straits, politically and financially and economically. And listen, they could slip into really a quasi depression, not just a recession, in which case the entire European Union could be destabilized, undermined, and disintegrate. And the Eurodollar could plummet in value and importance on the global stage. It's very uncertain. And all those things, we're not an island in the United States anymore. Yes, we're buffered in a lot of ways, but a collapse in Europe or a collapse in Germany that begins a collapse in Europe, that will not be good for the United States, folks. Italy, they're now at 136% debt to GDP, gross domestic product. Wow, that's even worse than the United States. Unbelievable. It's as bad as Venezuela and some of the others. Speaking of which, Brazil, all the election fraud down there, they got rid of a great president, a Trump like guy with a bunch of election fraud in 2020, and Lulu, the communist, took over. Wow, it's 4 years later, and guess what? Brazil is on the verge of collapse. This is this is one of South America's largest economies, and by land area, largest country and rich with resources. Which, by the way, the Chinese are industriously trying to infiltrate and pilfer right under our noses, and Obama, third term, is allowing it to happen. So you have instability in South America. Back to Europe, France, the government has basically collapsed. Macron, who reminds me of Trudeau, reminds me of that idiot who's the governor, Gavin Newsom out there, gruesome Newsom in California. I mean, those guys must all have the same mother. I mean, I don't. They're terrible, and they could all pass for one another with a little slick back hair and the face and whatever. Oh my! So, and Canada, the government there, thank God, Trudeau's government is on the verge of collapse. His second in command resigned from the cabinet a week ago. Friedland, I've talked to you about her. She was worse than he was. This was the gal who froze all the accounts of the truckers. I mean, she is ruthless. But she resigned. And Trudeau, I mean, there are so many calls for him to step down and resign that it's a deafening roar up there, which is unusual for the normally complacent Canadians. Even they have had enough of this nonsense. Good for them. And Trump's been having some fun with it, calling it the 51st state, et cetera, which, by the way, I'd like to see. Maybe without Quebec. How's that? So, all around the globe, North America, Europe, three major countries in Europe, Italy, Germany, France, and the rest are not uh, doing great, folks. Uh, Asia, Japan is on the ropes. I mean, they've had 30 years of horrible fiscal management. Uh, their debt to GDP, I believe, is over 200% now. Worst in the world. Worst in the world. So every continent is having problems. In Africa, we have all sorts of conflicts, corruption, nastiness going on. Uh, they don't have, well, a lot of those economies collapsed a while ago. Zimbabwe, hyperinflation. South Africa is on the ropes. It's a global phenomena. And the United States, even if the rosiest predictions about the US economy are followed from all these different people saying different things, the United States is not immune to the effects of those kind of calamities overseas. And on the war front, even though the mainstream media is saying very little bit about it, Ukraine is getting its butt kicked. Russia is getting more and more pissed off, receiving long range American and British and French missiles 1,200 kilometers into Russia from Ukraine. And that situation is rapidly deteriorating. The only hope on that is Trump. I mean, I think the only reason that Vladimir Putin has not used a tactical nuclear weapon to wake NATO up and to show them for the cowards they really are is that Trump's 6 weeks, well, actually, now he's 4 weeks out, actually 3 weeks out from getting inaugurated. And I think Putin knows Trump wants to solve the problem. Hopefully, hopefully. China, told you about this last week, has ramped up its military activity around Taiwan to the highest level since like 1990. And China, uh, if they're going to make a move soon, they're going to do it between now and Inauguration Day. I'm not sure with their economy, they're quite in a position to do it, nor do I think they want to do something that might extend beyond Inauguration Day where Trump is then in power. So I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, it'll be between now and Inauguration Day. Then you have this threat of this dirty bomb, lost nuke, who knows what it is, that these military drones, which they deny, of course, of course, they deny, are trying to sniff out all up and down the East Coast. Terrific. It gives you warm fuzzies. I listened to a show the other day. I'm going to bring you more on this in the next few weeks. It seems that all the major transformers, there's big ones like outside on your telephone pole, the neighborhood, the community, the big transformers. It seems that for the last 4 years, and actually I'm going to try and have the producers put this video up for you because this guy really knew his stuff. All the big utility companies have been buying them from China. And it was proven, let me underline this, proven by some researchers that China has built back doors into these transformers where they can just blow them up and shut them down with the flick of a switch, which would paralyze the country. Okay, they wouldn't even have to use an EMP. They just flick a switch in Beijing. Up, all the lights are out in America. So we have that threat, right? The grid threat. And in Syria, I don't know if you know this, but this is like shades of Benghazi on steroids. The group that threw out Assad literally overnight, who's now in Russia, by the way, is, you guessed it, Al Qaeda. And they were funded by, you guessed it, the United States. And the press, so that it doesn't seem so bad, the press has now renamed Al Qaeda HTS. I don't know what HTS stands for, but they're playing their word salad games again, folks, to try and fraud you. How's that? Try and fraud you. So Syria is unknown. Israel, taking advantage of this, has tanks in Syria and is bombing the living hell out of anything to do with the Syrian army, which of course is cementing Al Qaeda's power, and they are now running Syria. As an Islamist state, I might add, Obama must be very happy, and beginning the persecution of Christians again. Do you remember the whole ISIS thing? And there are elements of ISIS in this particular faction of Al Qaeda that now controls Syria. And then, of course, you have the Iran-Israel mess. And one of the things that the downfall of Syria means is that Israel has a direct shot in terms of bombing and airways to Iran. They don't have to fly around Syria. They don't have to ask permission for Iraq. I mean, wow. Okay. So there are things going on around the world. We don't know what their ending will be. Economically, politically, geopolitically, in terms of the military. And any one of them could affect the United States in a number of ways, in a number of tangents, on a number of levels. And each one of those effects on the United States will affect you and your family and your property and your finances and your safety and your freedoms, perhaps. So don't be an ostrich. I mean, don't live in fear. Don't be nervous Nelly. Just know that nothing is certain and plan accordingly. You know, the only thing which is certain in uncertainty is that you accept the uncertainty and react accordingly. All right, so uh, a few other things for you. So bureaucrats now know they are under attack by Doge, Vivek, Elon, Trump, and I would expect to see, I think you have seen over the last month with some of these bogus reports and revisions, I would expect to see bureaucrats who are really upset that Trump got elected and really upset that they're about to lose their job try to do whatever they can in their little way as the underlings of Obama's third terms to sabotage Trump coming in, including with more lies, distortions, and bad reports so that people cannot plan and mistakes might be made in the future. I mean, that's really what these people, they don't care. They really don't care. Liz Cheney, you've probably heard about this. So now she's on the hot seat for witness tampering. I would project that Biden will pardon her. I think he'll pardon a bunch of people, including Fauci. Uh, Hopefully, Fauci can be tried at the World Court because his crime is against humanity, not just treason against America. Act Blue, you know, this is the big fundraising outfit for the Democratic Communists. It seems that they are now in hot water for money laundering, including taking money over the last three election cycles, 2020, 22, and the one just concluded. They are now accused of taking money and laundering it, including from, that's right, foreign governments, which is strictly verboten. Illegal. Illegal as hell, as a matter of fact. Long jail terms, including from, oh, yeah, the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, and the North Koreans. Isn't that a big surprise? We'll see what happens to the Act Blue folks, or if they are on the pardon list as Cadaver walks out the door with a pat on the back by Obama. And so there are there's $1,400. This is one of the sabotage deals. The IRS announced that they're sending out 1 million, do the math on this, $1,400 average checks to 1 million Americans whom they think you don't have to apply, you don't have to send in a piece of paper, you don't have to prove anything. They're just sending you a check. If they think that you didn't take all the COVID stimulus money 4 years ago, I'm not making this up. That's $140 billion more deficit spending added to the national debt. And symbolic of the sabotage that Trump is facing coming into office. Even though Biden, who said he wouldn't pardon his son, but did, promised to do a smooth and friendly transition. I told you at the time, BS. And you know what? Your hayseed was right. So, coming up, folks, the year-end show, the New Year's prognostications, and an update on some events which have been percolating, particularly big court events, which are mostly going our way over the course of 2024 and coming up in 2025 at the Supreme Court level. In the meantime, go to the website, ontherightsideradio.com. All these stories are posted for you, a bunch of videos, etc. But most importantly, go to the Take Action page, go to the recommended contribution page, and send some money to those three special elections. New York 21, Florida 1, Florida 6. I'm not really sure why Trump appointed those people to positions with such a small margin in the House. I don't think I would have done that, you know. Better to be sure than unsure, particularly since the House really plays a key role in what Trump has to get done. They control the purse strings. So make sure you do that. Make sure you get your friends and your family to do that. Even if it's $10 each, it adds up. It makes a difference. And these candidates that are running for those Republican seats, they need your help because the Democrats are going to throw the kitchen sink at it. I mean, if they can keep the majority in the House to one Republican, they know they can knock off a couple rhinos on any vote. I mean, it's not a good deal. Not a good deal. And keep the wind at your back. You guys have a Merry Christmas, a happy Hanukkah, a terrific New Year's, although we'll speak to you before then. And enjoy your family, enjoy your friends. And remember, nothing is solved yet. Dominoes can fall in all sorts of ways unexpectedly. Be prepared. Be resilient. Have your mind right. In other words, when something happens, and something will, don't be surprised. Know what your plan of action is, whether it's economic, whether it's political, whether it's geopolitical, whether it's some kind of nasty black swan event. Be prepared. Love you all. Thanks for listening. We'll talk at you next week. This is Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio and the Cowboys Take on all your video channels. I'll talk to you after Christmas.
Please remember, if you've missed any shows, just click on Show Archive and you'll find all of his shows. We look forward to seeing you here again next week for another episode of Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side.